Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Jason with Jadren Aquatics. Thanks for hanging out with me again. So today we are going to talk about spawning mops. So let's talk about, first of all, why in the world do you need a spawning mop? You see the people who have these things in their tanks sometimes and you're thinking, what in the world is this thing exactly for? So there's quite a few fish out there that are scattering egg fish. That means they just swim over, the male and female come together and they just spread their eggs all over the place. And so in the wild, a certain percentage of them get eaten and then a certain percentage of them grow up to be adults. But in our tanks, being such a small ones, that as they spread those eggs, there's a pretty good chance that almost every single egg that's spread is going to get eaten by something unless you have a heavily planted tank. So what these things do is these spawning mops give you the chance to save those eggs, because there's a lot of different egg scattering fish. There's rainbow fish, there's danios, there's tetras, there's barbs, and there's even some catfish that use this technique. And so by putting this in there, this acts like a plant to the fish. They seem to think that these are plants. And so they'll run through these things as they're laying those eggs, and because of the way this stuff is being acrylic, those eggs will stick directly to these things. And so it makes it really, really easy whenever you're ready to pull these things out of the water, and then you can look and you can find the eggs really, really easy. And it also provides some protection. Another thing that these can be used for is to provide a place for fry to hide. Let's say you just have a bunch of guppies. If you want to put 2 or 3 of these into the tank, it gives a place for the fry to get away from. Or if you're setting up a breeding tank, which usually has nothing in it but a filter, a lot of times when you first put fish in there, they're used to being maybe in a planted tank, and just having an empty tank kind of scares them. If you'll take these and put 4 or 5, maybe 6 of these into the tank, and this gives them a bunch of different hiding places, and it also makes them feel a lot more secure and will set you up for even more success when it comes to breeding your fish. So let's talk about what this stuff is. So this stuff is 100% acrylic. I'll link above the ones that I use. Almost always you see people that use these in green. Again, the reason they use them in green is because it looks more like a plant. If there's another color out there that you want to try, if you're into the clown throw up gravel, the fluorescence and stuff, and maybe you want to get some fluorescent and try it, you're more than welcome. I think the yarn will be fine, but it may scare the fish. I don't know. I just think if you're trying to have the most success you can, you might as well get something that looks to be a color of a plant. So that's why you see most people use these greens. And so typically the type of yarn that I buy, I don't do anything to it beforehand, but if you're concerned about it leaching dyes, then after you've made your mops, take it and boil it in water for about 20 minutes and then pour that water off. And if you see any of that color in the water, you know that that thing is releasing dye. So you may boil that thing 3, 4, 5 times until you finally pour out the water and you don't see any more color in it. But for the most part, when you buy this 100% acrylic yarn, you're not going to have any problem with that whatsoever. And so if you look here in the tank, you'll see we've got one going on right here. This one's in here for my dwarf praecox rainbows. They run in and out of this thing all the time. Typically almost every single day I can pull at least 1 or more eggs out of it all the time. Now granted, this tank doesn't have a lot of other type of fish that are predator fish in it. There are a couple of angelfish. So there will be other fish. If you leave these in here too long, these other fish will come in there and they'll start picking in there and they'll find those eggs and they will eat them. So you do need to move them pretty quick, but it does provide quite a bit of hiding space for those eggs to be safe. So let's go ahead and let's figure out how in the world we make these things. Okay, so you got your bolt of yarn here, and then you need to make a determination how long you want these things to be. The length that you want them to be needs to be the length of the piece of whatever you want to use is. Like from this top to this bottom is how long this one's going to be. As you can see, I made this one with that one right there, and that's how long it is. So if you got a much deeper tank, maybe a 20-gallon high, you want to use something longer than this. Maybe just take some cardboard and cut it to whatever length that you want. This, I like to use this because it's stiff and it's real easy to work with. So you just simply, these things are really, really easy to do. You just take the yarn there at the first and kind of hold it with your hand, and then take the yarn here and wrap it around. Maybe wrap it around 2 or 3 times to kind of pin that piece down so it doesn't come off anymore. And then if you want to, you can just drop the yarn now so that the yarn's on the ground. And so then you're just going to take this thing and just spin it like this, so that it just keeps rolling the yarn down by your feet. It doesn't matter how crazy this thing is getting on here whatsoever. And you're going to keep doing this. I usually like to do about 100 times. 100 gives it a nice fluffy feel to it. So let's go ahead and let's get this thing and speed this up to 100 times. Okay, so now we've got it so that it's been wrapped around there about 100 times. So now we just have this excess yarn that's hanging here. So simply just cut that yarn, doesn't matter where you cut it, and just let it lay down like that. And then you're going to want to take the yarn here, and now you want to bunch it up so that it's all up against each other like this. And then take one of the sides, it doesn't matter which one, and you can use yarn if you want, but I like to use cable ties because it's a lot easier. And then just take a cable tie and put that cable tie right in the middle. Get the cable tie turned correctly. And then lock that cable tie down right in the middle and just pull it as tight as you can. Okay, so now you've got that cable tie right there. The other side is open. And so now, take your scissors again and grab this and just try to find the middle point. It's not critical, but find about the middle point and then just cut all that off. And so now you've got this piece right here, okay? And so if you want to, on some of mine, I like to leave this cable tie on because this gives me the ability to hang it if I want to from the tank. If I want to use some clips or something to hold on to it, I can make it, go wherever I want it to go, or I can make it fall down farther in the tank or higher in the tank, or whatever I want to do. Or if you don't like this thing, you can simply just take it and snip it off, just like that. And so now if you snip it off, now you've got to create a way for this thing to float. So what I like to use to float are just simple wine corks. I'll link these above. These things are super cheap. You can buy a whole bunch of these things off Amazon. And so you just open the yarn back up here to the middle and just take that cork and just put it there in the middle like that. Kind of wrap it around. You get you another cable tie ready. Kind of try to get the yarn so that it kind of covers up the sides and stuff. And then you're going to take all the yarn and you're going to just pinch it so that it's right up against it like that. Then you're going to take the other cable tie or yarn, whatever you want to use to do it. Take that cable tie and get it up as close to that cork as you possibly can. Pull it tight. Mine's trying to shoot out, so we'll fix it before we get it completely tight. Then pull that thing as tight as you possibly can. This one you don't need to leave long. So this one you can just simply cut off there. All right, and there you go. Your spawn mop is now finished. If you're anal and you don't like that one that's hanging too low, you can always come in here and do that. Or if you want to trim the thing up so that they're all the exact same length, if that bothers you, you can. So this thing is now ready. Again, if you're concerned about this thing leaching off any of these dyes in it, boil this thing a few times again and see if the water turns any type of color. Now when you first put this thing in the water, what's going to happen is all of this yarn is going to float to the top like this. That's because this thing isn't saturated enough. If you've ever put a sponge in a tank, the first time it never goes down to the bottom no matter how hard you try because it's not completely full of water. It's still got a bunch of air bubbles in it, and that's exactly what happens to this. And so if you leave it in there a couple of days, it'll finally sink down. But if you want, you can take this and put this under the water faucet and just keep putting water in it and then squishing it out. Putting water and squishing it out. Do that about 10 or 15 times, and usually that'll saturate the thing enough so that you can take it and put it into the tank, and it will go down and it'll hang just like that one did. Alright, so there you go. There is your spawning mop made easy. I'm going to have a ton of breeding projects going on in the fish room, so I'm going to be making a bunch of these. So if you guys got any questions or comments, be sure and leave it down below. If you do this a little bit different, tell me how you do it. Maybe I can make this even better than it already is, because I'd love to hear you guys' ideas. So thanks again, guys, and God bless.